we are back online. We will have to see if people find us just because we're not in the same place now. But at least we will, at the very least, we are recording again. Um, so let's let's keep going. Um, Brad, if it's okay, if I could ask you to repeat kind of that last trail of thought to kind of get us back into where we were. And in the meantime, I will share the link of where we are with people and where they're hopefully still waiting for us.
Sure. So I think what I'll do, Fabian, is I'll just really encapsulate it in this way is that there is an opportunity, I believe, for trauma coaches to form to be able to work together with other health professionals in a different manner than what they do. So it's like, let's let the guys that know what they're doing about the clinical side of it do their work. And let's complement some of that healing with trauma clients in the work that we do so that we can then have a complete and whole client at the end of it. And they have all the resources that they need moving forward.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if I
that's
can add to that, to me, it's about to adding to what Brad is talking about. It's really working on their core values and beliefs, and what have really brought them through, these events and that for themselves, so that they are allowed to show up in their as their authentic self and see that light for themselves as they move forward in this new way.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that I have had in my classes. So I'm one of the facilitators for the art and science of coaching for Erickson, and it's really interesting that in my classes there have been quite a few psychologists who have been saying that they wanted to learn exactly what you guys were describing. It's like I love my job. I love what I'm doing. I love helping people, but I don't want to take people back to the past all the time. I want to learn how to work with people and help them move towards the present or even better, the future. And it's something that we emphasize all the time is that with solution focused coaching is that it's complementary to anything else, any of the other helping professions, whether that's psychology, therapy, or even management or what have you. Um, so it can enrich whatever it is that people are doing. Uh, yeah, in the moment already, they don't have to unlearn everything. I mean, it might help to reconsider some things and to kind of reframe some things, but it's all complementary, and you can put it on top of it. I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, that trauma informed coaching is similar since it is, as I understand, based on solution focused coaching. Brad, is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, what we do within the trauma-informed coaching is certainly, you're right, it's a solution-based approach. So, and I believe that the techniques that we use within this, again, we explore areas that might not be a regular um, a lot of people are interested in it, but it's something that we don't necessarily go to when we think of coaching. And the reality is when I look at being able to apply the solution focus lens to this type of work, then why can't we go there? We go everywhere else with this type of thing. And if we're not digging through the baggage of the past, and we are in creation and moving forward, and hoping to hold people in a place of mastering their practice, which what I mean by that is in trauma, I like to look at it as you're mastering your practice, and your practice is life. So it's like we really want to encourage them to have this idea that to look at their life not as a destination, but to look at it as a journey and to be able to enjoy, regardless of what has come before, but to be able to enjoy where they are now and to be curious about what changes we need to make so that they can do just that, regardless of any imprint that may have happened.
Yeah, set the goal and let go of the outcome, and allow the world to show up maybe even better.
Hmm. Allow the world to show up even better. That's quite beautiful. I like that. So I don't have the comment to put it on the screen right now, just because we had this little hiccup where we went offline. But Eddie had a follow up to the COVID situation. He said, very interesting, Brad. I have also come across imposter syndrome trauma from executives who are missing the in-office interaction. Is there anything have you noticed anything along those lines?
Yeah, we it's interesting because we have had executive coaches in our classes, and of course, as a coach, a lot of us have at one point or other in our life suffered imposter syndrome ourselves until we get our legs under us and move forward with our skill and technique. So it's interesting that what Eddie's saying there, that he is experiencing some imposter syndrome, and that without the it sounds like a sort of first chakra thing for me, where it's like our tribe has been dispersed a little bit, and the strengths and the identity that we have that has grown from our work from the tribe itself, so to speak. So it would be interesting in those cases if people are feeling, if your client is feeling that way, Eddie, it would be super interesting to actually reinvestigate who his authentic self is, so that he can draw the values from himself to anchor where he is, to then apply it to his work, instead of what might sound like a little vice versa. Because oftentimes what happens when we are in environments such as that, it's the global us, or the conglomerate or the company itself, and that is what our identity becomes. So in moments when we do not have the camaraderie, say, of coworkers and what have you, it's an interesting time for us to really explore what is authentic self, and the whole idea about being enough, which we do a great deal of work around that in trauma coaching, because that's always our anchor. And once again, no matter who the client is, executive, uh, whatever type of coaching we do, once they start having a clearer sense of who they are, then they can start the building blocks that move out from there and investigate the other things that support them moving forward.
Yeah, that's so funny, Fabian, that that Eddie's asking that, because Brad and I literally just had a meeting about this yesterday.
Aha. Yeah, something in the air. No, I think it's probably popping up everywhere, honestly. And people who are leaders, who are seeing themselves as, I don't know if it's too biblical, shepherds, but who define themselves by helping other people, and by having that, like you said, Brad, that tribe in a way. um, they might suffer particularly from not being able to notice where am I needed, what can I contribute, and just like you said, finding that value, that this being enough, and how can I accept this situation and maybe even provide more value, because people might need more leadership than ever in slightly different ways. How can I actually use this to fuel um, my sense of community, rather than having a take away from it, maybe ideally. Um, so the topic for this month at Erickson Live that we're talking about is building resilience. And so far, we've been talking about building resilience to work through trauma, right? I'm curious, as we are entering already into the last 10-15 minutes that we have together, um, is there also such a thing as building resilience to prevent trauma, to just, I don't even know how to phrase this, because I don't want to characterize trauma as an illness, but can I build enough resilience to be immune to trauma, or what is the dynamic here?
I don't know if you can be immune to trauma, because I mean it'll show up in all kinds of various ways and that. But I think if, as a coach, if you can really support somebody in building those values for themselves, and those core values, and having them understand those core values, and seeing and working within those, so that everyone is showing up with their within their authentic self. When Brad and I do the moral injury summits, we talk about core values a lot, and we do the values wheel, and everybody learns that in module 1 and module 2 of Erickson. And we use this, and we talk about the fact of, when these core values consistently get bumped up against, it will create a moral injury. And when those moral injuries get bumped up too many times, it could create a traumatic event. So if somebody sees and knows what these core values are, and if something has been crossed, that line's been crossed, they can look at that right away and they see it. And that will support them in building resilience. So, in as they move forward, right, and building resiliency against trauma.
Mm-hmm. We have a question on that from Sarah, who's asking, would that be counterproductive if we build resilience to trauma? I'm interpreting as maybe if we have the focus on, oh, trauma might happen, and we're kind of having the focus there, and we're trying everything to avoid the trauma, then of course we're focusing on the negative, right?
You know what? I don't think we're ever going to stop trauma from happening in our lives. I think that's just something that it's an awareness. But we can certainly support people to show up for themselves in these authentic, as their authentic selves, and have this awareness. I think that's what we do, and that's what we can do and bring as coaches, and especially as solution-focused coaches.
Okay, so somebody who's showing up as their authentic selves, who is very aware of the values that they have, who can navigate their life in a way that they embody those values, and put themselves in a situation where they're able to embody those values, those people will usually display a lot more resilience, is what I'm taking from what you said.
I believe so. I believe so.
Great. Brad, what would you like to add to that?
Well, certainly, when we look at resilience around trauma, there's 3 specific areas that we look at. The reason that some people suffer more than others is what the traumatic event was, what the eco-social structure of their life was, and it's also the philosophical piece of their life. So it's very hard to say that we can identify who's going to suffer more than others. But when I think about building resilience, if I know my blind spots, if I know that maybe, and I don't look at it so much as the trauma itself, but things like the societal things that happen and the philosophical things that happen. So we can certainly build, if we have a feeling around religions or beliefs that are important to us. So, and what I mean by that is a bigger power, or a power that's within inside of us, then some people are able to work through that. But I do believe what has been said, it's like if we are attuned to who we are, what our beliefs and values are, and we feel strongly about those, then we have set ourselves up for a better go in case there has been a trauma. And again, it's impossible to dictate whether or not that is, when I think about how do we formulate trauma resilience, one thing would be, what do we need after a trauma? Well, if I knew that after a trauma, some of the things that we could do to assist ourselves, because if you think about people getting help directly after a trauma, there's a 3-month window that can assist them with not producing a result such as post-traumatic stress disorder. So if we know these things in advance, if I have a working knowledge of what trauma might look like and might not look like, if I know that if I'm starting to feel these ways, if I'm feeling hypervigilant, if I'm feeling anxious after something happened, could be an automobile accident, could have been something that was not destructive, but it shook a person's reality. And in those moments, I think we can, if I have the knowledge around what people may become traumatically involved with, then I could step or I could go down a pathway that says, okay, here's what's happened. Why don't I be proactive and actually go and talk to someone about this and maybe even process it? And what I mean by that is that the more that we make sense of the story, especially in trauma, the better that we're able to move through it. So if I know these things before anything ever happens to me, that would be building resilience. And if I know what types of resources I should look for or what types of symptoms I should be aware of, then I think that's a good way to build resilience, not only for ourselves, but for those around us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, what, for example, as you're saying, for ourselves and for those around us, what can somebody do? Laura was asking before um, that she wanted to get from the scream how to recognize trauma in loved ones, maybe as like somebody who isn't a coach. If we haven't done the wonderful course to become trauma informed coaches, and we're kind of still on the step below that, what are some values to hold, or what are some behaviors to display to help others around us build resilience?
Understanding your core values. Really, right? And being mindful, having, that mindfulness and that around those core values. Those are really, really important.
Yeah. Okay. So not feeling and not making others feel like they're a pinball being flippered around by life and not being in control of their life, but being aware of the core values, having that mindfulness and acting accordingly, is kind of the source from which that resilience stems. Got it. Um, India, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name correctly, is asking what to do with the trauma that has been denied and that has subconsciously influenced the present life all the time. So what if somebody hasn't done what we just discussed, and what if they kind of have been piled on again and again and again? What if something has gotten really uh, into the groove and is really deeply rooted? What might be um, some difference to the more recent cases that might be a little easier to move beyond? Brad, maybe.
Yeah. Well, if I believe what I'm hearing there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're asking what to do when you look at someone and think that a trauma, if whether you know of it or not, is affecting their lives, but they have no ownership around that. Is that correct?
I We have about a 20-second delay, so let's just go
Yeah.
with that as an
So if,
assumption for
if
now.
that's
Yeah.
the If, yeah, okay. So if that is the case, then what we do is the number one thing is that we're not moving our client into anywhere that they don't want to go or people around us, right? So again, that is, if I'm diagnosing that I think that is affecting them, then that's not really where I'm going as a coach. But to add on to the question that was asked earlier, one of the ways that you might be able to determine whether or not this is something that is disturbing people in their lives is that we watch for extreme behavioral changes. And of course, we look for dissociation. So if you are around loved ones that suddenly you see they are dissociating and they are also doing things that are quite abnormal for them in their regular behaviors. And I mean, COVID right now, it's a difficult thing to view because everyone's doing things outside of what we used to do because our structure has been a little bit changed. But the one way to recognize is, how distant they are. Are they still, do they still look like they have a sense of enjoyment even around their family or loved ones? Life in general might not be giving them that, but those are some signs that we can look at and say, okay, maybe something's going on for them. And then again, I always go to the curiosity around it. So I'm being curious so that I can understand it, remembering that everyone's perception is their own. my life is only my perception, as is yours. So just being curious and asking the questions and to seek understanding of what that person might be going through, because what we perceive them going through could be completely different than what they're going through. So again, just holding that space to ask those questions. And that's a great way to check in to see if people are actually okay or not.
Yeah. Brad said something earlier, when we started this conversation, he talked about, being aware of the nuances. And for me, when I think about that, when you're talking to somebody that has gone through traumatic events, the pauses will take longer for people to formulate information within their head, right? So giving them that extra space to formulate that, that the answer. If they go, or or anything like that, those are nuances for me. Those are nuances. And those are the ones that the nuggets that you ask the questions around. So tell me, what does that aha mean? Or what, be curious around it. And those are the nuggets that come out that you get those deeper dives into.
Okay, so looking out for the nuances while not diagnosing, being curious and holding the space for people. I think that's
Yeah.
a beautiful place to kind of come to a close for today. Um, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about trauma-informed coaching, both as a concept and as as an educational offer that they can partake in, or if they want to reach out to you and be connected? How can people do that, Brad?
Sure.
They can certainly give Susan or I a call at any time, and you'll find the numbers that you would require on traumainformedcoaching.com. So traumainformedcoaching.com, you can reach out to us through there, or movingthehumanspirit.com. Either of those places will bring you to us. And Susan and I are always open to have conversations around trauma and learning more about it. So please, regardless if you're interested in courses or not, reach out and have a conversation with us. We welcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to support. This is a growing field and a new niche market, and it's an amazing place to be.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you for being part of, the Erickson community, and for being part, or for yeah, for making the stream today. And I think today's information that you gave everybody is very actionable, very valuable, and probably applies to a lot more people than might be aware of it. So thank you very, very much, and yeah, all the best. Talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Fabian.